Hey guys, it's Home from Wrestling Inc. back with another wrestling news roundup. Without any further ado, let's get into today's biggest stories in the world of professional wrestling. Sasha Banks and Naomi disappointed the WWE Universe mentioned on Raw. WWE once again acknowledged Sasha Banks and Naomi's walkout on last week's Raw. Prior to the Nikki ASH vs Alexa Bliss match, Corey Graves stated on commentary that Banks and Naomi, quote, disappointed the WWE Universe, end quote, by staging a walkout from the company. Graves would also blame Banks and Naomi for costing Nikki and Doudrop a shot at becoming the #1 contender to Bianca Belair's Raw Women's Championship. Quote, last week, the then Women's Tag Team Champions Naomi and Sasha Banks would leave during the broadcast of Monday Night Raw, Graves said. Walk out of the arena during the show, and Nikki, ASH and Doudrop were actually scheduled to be part of the six-pack challenge main event. Sasha Banks and Naomi would relinquish their championships and disappointed the WWE Universe in the process, end quote. On last week's Raw, Graves mentioned live on commentary that Sasha and Naomi, quote, summarily and unprofessionally walked out, end quote, of the WWE. He received flack on social media for the comments, which he addressed later on his After the Bell podcast. Quote, there's speculation and rumours all over the place, Graves said. I was on the air when it went down. I only know the information that was provided to me, and in the days since, while everybody continues to speculate, I don't have any more information. I don't know enough about the circumstance or the situation or which side did what, so I'm just going to avoid it, end quote. Neither Sasha Banks nor Naomi has made any public comments since their walkout. Banks was reportedly in Minnesota this past weekend, hanging out with family and attending a DJ Steve Aoki concert. Meanwhile, Naomi has removed all references to WWE on her social media pages. On Monday, Fightful Select reported that there, quote, is no end on the horizon for this situation, end quote, while confirming that neither Banks nor Naomi was in Evansville, Indiana for the Raw taping. WWE has already removed all references to the two wrestlers from their TV graphic intro, deleted their Facebook pages, and pulled all their merchandise from WWE Shop. The report noted that WWE continues to reiterate that it has no plans to release Banks or Naomi, and the decision to pull their merch was part of the indefinite suspension announced last Friday. Riddle gives updates on future of RKBro on last night's WWE Raw. It looks as though we may have seen the last of RKBro on last Friday's SmackDown. Former Raw Tag Team Champion Riddle kicked off last night's episode of the Red Brand by addressing the WWE Universe. After entering the ring and grabbing the microphone, Riddle let the fans know that he comes to the arena with a heavy heart last night. Riddle then revealed that his partner Randy Orton has been dealing with debilitating back issues as of late, and though he may not have been in the proper condition to compete, Randy wrestled in the Unification Tag Team title match because it meant so much to Riddle. When it comes down to it, Riddle isn't sure what the future holds for RKBro after what has happened. He says that it's unclear if there'll ever be a team again, and with Randy Orton's current injuries, he isn't even sure what the future holds for Randy Orton as a single star. Riddle also had some strong words for Roman Reigns and the Bloodline, telling them that they didn't win the right way and he will get revenge. He even went as far as calling the tribal chief a piece of trash. The segment went to commercial as the fans stood up and loudly chanted RKBro as Riddle pointed to the camera and told Orton it was for him. This led us to our first match of the night, the undisputed WWE Tag Team Champions the Usos and Sami Zayn versus the Riddle and the Street Profits. Backstage news on the Usos WWE Tag Team title unification. The Usos may have become the unified tag team champions on SmackDown last week, but it was a near thing. According to Dave Meltzer on the latest edition of Wrestling Observer Radio, the call to actually have a title change happen was made late. WWE had been promoting RK-Bro versus the Usos since the previous episode of SmackDown, but the only thing set in stone was the post-match beatdown from the Bloodline. In terms of who was actually going to walk away with both sets of titles, WWE apparently went back and forth on it, with Vince McMahon himself making the final call. The WWE chairman felt that because the match had been so heavily promoted, it made sense to commit to a winner. Of course, the unification match between the two teams was originally slated to take place at WWE WrestleMania Backlash, but the company changed direction at the last minute. That match became a 6-man tag team bout, which saw Drew McIntyre team with RKBro to face all 3 members of the Bloodline. WWE is currently running storyline injuries to both Riddle and Orton following the post-match attack by the Bloodline, with the company putting out the following statement. As a result of the vicious attack by the Bloodline in the wake of SmackDown's tag team title unification match, Riddle has suffered a bruised hip and lower back, and both he and Randy Orton are undergoing medical evaluation, end quote. This could all be in service of setting up future storylines with Roman Reigns. It's been reported that both Riddle and Orton are set to get undisputed WWE Universal Championship matches soon. The former NXT Tag Team Champion is supposedly slated to face Reigns at WWE Money in the Bank, while Orton will compete with the Tribal Chief at WWE SummerSlam. According to these reports, neither member of RKBro is currently set to defeat Reigns, who will defend his titles against Drew McIntyre at WWE Clash at the Castle. Top WWE star added to Raw Women's title match at Hell in a Cell. The Raw Women's title match at Hell in a Cell just got a lot more interesting. The main event of last night's WWE Raw was a rematch from last week's #1 contender match between Becky Lynch and Asuka, but since Asuka had already earned her opportunity for a shot at the Raw Women's title at Hell in a Cell next month, Lynch was the only one with anything to lose. Adam Pearce granted her the ability to join the Raw Women's title match at Hell in a Cell to make it a triple threat, but only if she can defeat Asuka. The two women put on another entertaining showcase last night, with the ending of the match growing more unpredictable as it drew closer. It looked as though Asuka may lose the match due to a countout, but she slid back in the ring right at the count of 9. That was when Lynch rolled her up for the 3 count and the victory. With Lynch added to the mix, there are now 3 matches confirmed for Hell in a Cell. Kevin Owens vs Ezekiel was teased on last night's show, but as of this recording, it has not been confirmed. New match announced for WWE Hell in a Cell, stipulation to be revealed. The feud between Omos and Bobby Lashley isn't over quite yet. Last night's WWE Raw saw Lashley come to the ring to reveal exactly what his almighty challenge was for MVP and Omos. Before he went into further detail, it was announced that Omos and Bobby Lashley will have their 4th match against one another at Hell in a Cell on June 5th. The almighty challenge from Lashley actually played into his new Hell in a Cell match being announced. He laid down the challenge of a singles match against MVP on Raw, and the winner of the bout will have the power to choose the stipulation between Omos and Lashley at Hell in a Cell. Though Lashley was favourite to pick up the victory, Omos was able to distract Lashley long enough that MVP received a count-out victory. He will now choose the stipulation for Omos vs Lashley at Hell in a Cell at a later date. Last week on Raw, Lashley picked up a victory in a steel cage match when Omos unintentionally tossed him through one side of the cage. The wall broke away completely and allowed Lashley to escape for the victory. The two stars have been feuding for months now, ever since MVP betrayed Lashley and aligned himself with Omos. This led to their first match at WrestleMania 38 in April, where Lashley became the first man ever to defeat Omos in WWE. So what are your thoughts on today's Wrestling News Roundup? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Be sure to like and subscribe to Wrestling Inc. and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.